everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video, I'm excited to share with you some really fun, amazing information about a beautiful plant that you either are really familiar with, you've eaten it, you've grown it, you've taken it in supplement form, or you've never heard of it, and that is fenugreek. Now, fenugreek has been around and used not just culinary-wise, but medicinally by humans between 4,000 and 6,000 years. That's about where they continue. It's a broad span, but think about it. Thousands of years, human beings have been cultivating this plant, using it for food, using it for medicine, and it packs a power punch. Now, I didn't grow up familiar with fenugreek. It wasn't something my mom cooked with. It wasn't something my dad talked about, or from the best of my remembering, was using it or making tea out of it or whatever. I'm sure he knew about it. I'm sure he probably used it. But when you grow up in a great big family like mine, you tend to stick with really simple meals that you can make in great big batches. We were familiar with all the other spices and things, but the nuances of herbs and spices like fenugreek was just something that I didn't get growing up. Now, maybe my younger siblings did, but just researching this for this has brought up a bunch of really cool information that I wasn't familiar with. So I'm excited to share this with you. It is something that I've been using for decades because I know the benefits of the seeds. I love tea. And one of the things I love the most about fenugreek and its seeds is the sprouting, because as we know, when we sprout different seeds, they're highly nutritious, highly beneficial. I've got fenugreek seeds in my food storage along with a bunch of other seeds for sprouting, because in times when we need to maybe rely on something in our food storage, sprouting different seeds can be highly nutritious. And from my experience with growing and sprouting different seeds, you could survive on them if you had to, and you would be extremely healthy. So fenugreek is just one of those plants that, like I said, you're either really familiar with it or you're like, what is this? Basically is cultivated, but originates in South Asia, Middle Eastern to North Africa, and in the Mediterranean. And now it grows all over Europe and all over America because it's mostly cultivated. And in places like where I live, it's something that you can grow in a pot. In fact, you don't even need a yard to grow fenugreek. It looks to me like a microgreen, almost like it's in the legume family. So it looks like peas and lentils. Really unassuming plant. It doesn't grow great big. The parts of the plant that you use are the leaves, the young shoots, the young stalks, and the seeds. And the seeds are what's mostly used for medicinal properties, but the leaves have a lot of really amazing health benefits like most microgreens or greens do. So the botanical name, I had to write this down, is Trigonella foenum-graecum. So I'll put that below this video. It's a little bit of a mouthful to pronounce, but it is a really cool plant to get to know. And if you're a person who maybe has just a small patio, this is a plant that would be really fun to grow because you can start harvesting the young leaves after a pretty short period of time. I'm just going to kind of go through, first of all, the health benefits of fenugreek. And these are really well studied. In fact, one of my favorite health benefits is what it does for your blood sugar. In fact, when I was formulating a product called Stabilize 7, fenugreek was the very number one plant that I thought of about putting into this formula because this is the most researched medicinal benefit of this amazing seed. And that is the properties that we use in the Stabilize 7 does come from the seed. So it's such a powerhouse. And this is, like I said, very well studied. It's one of its most supportive benefits. It slows carbohydrate or absorption, improves insulin sensitivity, and the fiber reduces glucose spikes. So if it's something that you wanted to add into your diet and you're either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, this is something really amazing to add into your nutrition routine. Is really good for heart health because of its effect on cholesterol. It also is really good for lactation support. In fact, this is one of the things that it's been used medicinally for during these thousands of years is helping new nursing moms improve milk production. This is something that's really well known. In fact, when I was pregnant with my boys, I was in my early 20s when I had both of them. And fenugreek tea was something that I drank when I was nursing my boys because I heard about it from a friend. So this to me is one of those things that is, again, well studied and well known. It's also good for digestion, constipation, soothes irritated digestive tissues, and it's also known as an appetite stimulation. So if you've got, which almost sounds like, okay, it helps to regulate and balance blood sugar, and it also can improve your appetite, because we know sometimes depression, the crazy modern world we're in, sometimes it can be a problem, and especially if we're aware. I mean, think about this. All of the things that we're aware of that they do to our food supply, we want to stay away from the fast food, the junk food, the processed food, and eating as close to Mother Nature as possible can be a little bit difficult for some people because they might not have access. You might just be starting to grow your own food. And fenugreek is one of those that can help stimulate your appetite. And from my perspective, it's going to stimulate your appetite for foods that are highly nutritious for you, because that's what we want. We want to crave the foods that are good for us, right? It's also really well known for exercise and athletic performance. And this is something that I learned about even in more detail when I was in the fitness industry, and I was all into making these giant smoothies. And I still love to do green smoothies. I don't do them as often as I did when I was working every day in fitness. I was personal training. I was teaching classes. I used to own my own gym. And so there were a lot of things that were put on my radar to help exercise and athletic performance, because that's what a lot of athletes and people who are into exercise endurance, stamina, that's what they're after. And fenugreek in tea form is super yummy. In fact, one of my favorite recipes is super, super simple. What you do is you roast fenugreek seeds you dry roast them, and it kind of helps take a little bit of the bitter off, and it releases just some of the compounds that make it medicinal. Then you put it into a coffee grinder, you grind it up nice and fine. Then you steam up a cup of milk. And I'm a person who now can't do cow milk. It messes my digestive system. But if you can do cow milk, of course, get a really good source of organic, as the purest, cleanest cow milk you possibly can get. And for me, I like oat milk because that's my substitute. So basically you heat up a cup of milk, you take your ground up fenugreek seeds that have been roasted, and then you get a little bit of ghee this is just my favorite recipe. Put it in a pan and kind of cook your fenugreek powder in this ghee. And then you get your warmed up milk and you get a little strainer, and then you pour the ghee that's got all of the fenugreek in it, and you strain it through into the milk. And it will put a nice little film of fat on the top of the milk, which is your ghee. And it's the most delicious drink. In fact, one of the really cool things about fenugreek is that when it gets roasted and it has a certain chemical reaction that happens, and it smells like maple syrup. In fact, this is one of the things that they will use as a substitute for real maple when they flavor things. And this is the kind of information I want. It's like, okay, you're going to flavor something to taste like maple syrup. But if it's coming from something like fenugreek, that's perfect, right? Because then you're getting the flavoring from another plant that happens to have that as a quirky side effect to when you roast the seeds, right? I really love that. So it's really well known for improving athletic performance and exercise endurance. It's also good for male sexual health and testosterone. Okay, that's something that I've heard about for a long time. But the interesting thing is, because it affects your hormones, it's also good, like I said, for improving lactation and breast milk production. So it appears to help men and women, whatever it is that you're looking for as far as testosterone. Women have testosterone too. Men have small amounts of estrogen as well. Like, we're all the perfect balance, right? So this is where it almost has some adaptogenic properties, but it's really not known as an adaptogen. So it also has anti-inflammatory effects and antioxidant benefits, which to me, anything antioxidant, really good for preventing cancer, adding it to your diet if you're going through cancer treatments or you're going through taking care of yourself naturally to heal from any type of cancer, then this is something to consider to add into your nutrition because of its powerful antioxidant properties. And then I'm going to finish with the skin applications, super good for your skin. So you can make a poultice out of the leaves. You can even make a poultice out of the seeds, the ground up seeds. Now, if you do that, some people can be sensitive with fenugreek because of how powerful it is when you make it into a poultice and put it on your skin. So do a skin test first. If you're going to be using fenugreek, just do a tiny patch and just see how your skin responds. And if you get a rash or you get irritated, you might just be a little bit sensitive to using it on your skin. But fenugreek has been used for hair health and not just skin health. So dandruff issues and thinning hair even. I mean, I've had friends who've used fenugreek for like a hair pull or a hair rub or, massaging it into the scalp. Using tea, you can put fenugreek tea, rinse it through your hair. I mean, all kinds of things. And it's really fun to use natural things because you feel kind of like, wow, I am like the ultimate mother nature, a little bit witchy. It's so fun to use natural things, especially things that are outside of the norm, like rinsing your hair with fenugreek tea, right? It's also been shown that it's good for women's health as well. So menstrual discomfort, menopause symptoms, and even postpartum recovery. Now, all of those health benefits said, please know that this information is not meant to be medical advice. This is just meant to entertain and educate you. Always do your own due diligence when you add something into not just your supplement routine, but into your food. Because we do live in a society where a lot of people are on prescription medications for things like diabetes and blood thinners. And those are the two things to pay attention to. If you're on medication for diabetes or you're on something that's a blood thinner, then you need to definitely check in with your functional medicine doctor before you add fenugreek as far as a supplement. From my research and my own experience, adding fenugreek tea, having it in your food is totally fine. But when you're going to start adding it in higher doses for health reasons, just make sure that they don't have interactions with prescription medications that you might be on. Okay. This is a very personal decision that you make when you start doing supplements, and everybody's different, especially when you're on different meds. So that's basically the information about the health benefits, which I really love. Now, like I said, this is actually a really easy plant to grow. The thing that it doesn't like is it doesn't like to be waterlogged, and it can even be a little bit drought resistant. I know when I'm sprouting fenugreek, it definitely needs the water, but what you want to do is you want to germinate the seeds, plant them into a pot is my favorite way because you can keep clipping it as you use the greens. But if you let it mature, if you want to get the seeds from it, you let it mature, and it takes about 6 to 10 weeks to mature, but it grows these little tiny creamy white, pale yellow flowers. In fact, you can almost miss the flowers if you are busy cutting the greens or just watching all of the greens grow. You might miss the flowers, but if you let it mature, the flowers will turn into these long, skinny seed pods, and you can get anywhere from 10 to 20 fenugreek seeds from each seed pod. And another cool thing about a fenugreek plant is that it improves the nitrogen in the soil. So a lot of people will plant fenugreek along the sides of other garden vegetables, like their tomatoes and their cucumbers, and they'll plant fenugreek not only for the benefits of it, but for what it does for the soil. And the cool thing is fenugreek is self-pollinating. Now, it does like other pollinators to help it along, but it's not a plant you put in your yard to improve pollination because the flowers are so teeny, and it's just a plant that's going to give you high nutrition and all kinds of beautiful benefits. And it will grow seasonally. And it's something you have to plant every single year, typically, because the seeds, you grow them, you get all your greens and you harvest the seeds. If you do let a few plants get to full maturity without harvesting too many greens, you're going to get a lot more seeds in each individual pod. Okay. And then you can collect a ton of seeds and really never have to buy seeds again, especially if you grow them in a pot. Okay. Which I really love. Now, I looked into some of the magical, mystical, esoteric meaning behind this beautiful plant. Because if you think about it, if humans have been using this, not just for food, but for medicine for thousands of years, you know that there's some really beautiful magical content that has come out of this. So here's what I found. One of the most widespread magical associations with fenugreek is wealth and abundance. In various modern folk traditions, especially those influenced by North Africa, Middle East, and American folk magic practices, fenugreek seeds are carried in small pouches as money drawing charms. Okay. Money drawing, D-R-A-W-I-N-G, money drawing charms. A bowl of seeds may be placed near a cash register or business. Okay, this might be something that you've experienced if you go into an Indian restaurant. You might have a bowl of fenugreek seeds. Scoop up a little handful and pop them in your mouth when you leave the restaurant. Many of you might do this already. There might be fennel seeds. So they might be fennel, they might be fenugreek. Okay. Some traditions recommend replacing the seeds periodically so prosperity continues to grow. So if you have a little pouch of fenugreek seeds, which I think this kind of stuff is so fun, replace them on a regular basis because it basically represents prosperity continuing to grow. Fenugreek became linked with wealth, and here's why. A tiny seed swells dramatically when soaked. Okay, one plant can produce many more seeds. It represents multiplication and increase. In esoteric symbolism, plants that visibly multiply often become associated with abundance. Okay, that makes such perfect sense, right? So the seed of hidden potential. Okay, I found this and I love this. A recurring mystical theme is transformation. A fenugreek seed looks hard, dry, and inert. Yet they contain the potential for fragrance. Think about that maple fragrance, food, medicine, and hundreds of future seeds. Okay. Some modern herbal mystics use fenugreek as a meditation symbol for latent talents, dormant possibilities, and gradual personal growth. The lesson being that what appears insignificant may contain enormous potential. I love that. And then let's just talk real quick about the maple-like aroma, because this to me is one of the magical, amazing things about fenugreek. In fact, if you consume a lot of fenugreek, like say you fall in love with fenugreek tea and you start drinking 2 or 3 cups a day, your sweat and your urine might smell like maple. And I mean, it's so interesting. I experienced that one time a long time ago, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to find out if that was really true. And it was incredibly cool. Okay. So in symbolic traditions, unusual fragrances have often been viewed as signs of blessing, spirit presence, and sacred transformation. Because fenugreek can literally alter the scent of sweat and skin, some esoteric interpretations regard it as a plant that changes one's energetic signature. I love this. I think this is one of the most magical things about being a human being and experiencing all of these things that our consciousness, our divine spark is here to experience, right? That's a symbolic idea rather than a scientific one, okay? But it's an intriguing example of how a physical property can inspire a mystical and magical association. Now, then I found this about the golden seed, because it is a really beautiful seed. It's a little bit, they each look a little bit misshapen. No 2 seeds look exactly alike. If you were to get a handful of fenugreek seeds, you can definitely tell and you can get really familiar with what they look like. But they all seem so unique and so different. So the yellow gold color of mature fenugreek seeds naturally invites solar symbolism. Gold-colored seeds have often been linked to wealth, the sun, vitality, and harvest. A symbolic reading might see each seed as a tiny solar emblem, a stored packet of sunlight and waiting to unfold into life. And then this final thought. Fenugreek is thought as a threshold plant. The plants are simultaneously food, medicine, animal fodder. In fact, the fenugreek has been used and called a cow hay or just hay because the animals were fed this, horses and cows, throughout all these thousands of years. It was used as food for cattle and for horses. Okay. So food, medicine, animal fodder, and soil improvers, because of what it does for the soil, enriches it. So these foods actually often acquire special status in traditional societies. So to me, this is a plant that is one that is worth your time to investigate. Take a look at the very least, possibly sprouting some and using it as a microgreen to throw into your salads and to saute into different dishes. So look into this. And I'd love to know, what do you think about fenugreek? Are you super familiar with it? Do you cook with it? Is it something that was part of your culture? You know, this was something that was not part of my growing up. It was not a part of the cooking I learned to do. This was something that I incorporated long after I was an adult and really started learning the benefits of many plants and what they do for humans. And like I said, this is something that is such an amazing plant for helping with blood sugar that it did make it into our stabilized 7. It's one that's to stabilize blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity, along with some other really beautiful herbs. So I would love to know what you think about this plant. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.